Okay, so this is a quick tutorial on how to create a custom mouse body for an Amazon mouse. We're going to do this in Fusion 360, and to get started, we're actually going to go and download a model of an internal clip and hardware for the circuitry that will come out of the Amazon mouse that we're going to be working around. And so what we'll do is we'll go ahead and click Open in Fusion 360, and this will load this file into Fusion so we can begin to design our body around it. Okay, so once we have this in here, we are going to be designing the body of our mouse around this, and so we're going to start off by creating a form, and we're going to use the box tool, and we will create it along this bottom plane. And I'm going to try to center it as best as I can, but it may not be perfect, and that's okay. Okay, I'm going to come down here. Sure. Okay. And we're going to work with some rough dimensions. So we're going to make this 65 wide, and we can always pare this down, and we'll make it 120 millimeters long. And we'll make this height 40 millimeters tall. Okay. So here you can see we've kind of got the beginnings of our shape here, but we want to kind of understand how it's going to relate to our hardware, and so we're going to do a little bit of positioning around here, and some obviously modification of this overall shape. A couple things we're going to keep in mind is we can see how this kind of curves in down like this. We're actually going to flatten this off, and so we're going to lose a little bit of that height. And we're going to modify this shape to make it a little bit more ergonomic as well. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open up these bodies, and I'm going to right click here on body, and I'm going to change the opacity to about 80%, and that's going to kind of show me kind of the relative position here of the object that I'm working with. And so I'm going to move it down a little bit because I want to make sure that I have the internals kind of completely inside. And so I'm going to kind of position this, and again, I want to make sure that this is going to be kind of where I'm going to be cutting it off and making it flat. At the same time, making sure that I've got lots of room on all edges for the various parts of this to poke through. So that looks okay. Let's make sure we're at least roughly center. Looks like I can move this over just a hair to make it more center. Oop. I actually need to go in that direction. Okay, and that's looking a little bit better there. Okay, so I've got that positioned in a place where I think that's going to work okay. Okay, now what we can do is we can go ahead and modify our form. And with this, we're going to begin to kind of pinch and pull along the edges to create a shape that we think is going to kind of work best for us. So you can see I'm going to kind of taper this edge down here, and I'm going to do mine symmetrically. So if I move something on that side, I'm going to move it on that side as well to keep it nice and symmetrical. Okay, so I'm going to move this down a little bit more, and you can see that the scroll bar on this is pushing through just a bit. Okay, and I want that to be just barely protruding, and I also want to make sure that I'm leaving plenty of space for the various aspects of this mouse to come through. So I'm going to bring that up just a bit more because I can see that there's a piece of the mouse here that's kind of going to be getting close to the edge here, and again, I want to make sure that there's going to be plenty of space for that, and also this doesn't have to be protruding an awful lot in order to be effective. Okay, so that's looking okay. So again, just kind of constantly looking around, making sure that everything's going to fit the way that I think it should. Okay, let's take a look at our mouse. Okay, so a couple things. I'm going to play around with this, and again, just kind of thinking about various elements of ergonomics and what I think is going to be able to fit my hand best. So I'm going to kind of curve this down and make it sloping. Okay, and I'm also going to push this in just a bit and kind of contour it just a bit. Okay. So I'm liking the way that this is coming along. So I'm going to click OK here. And at this point I can finish my form. And here we can see that I've got the overall shape of my mouse. Of course, again, we're going to kind of flatten off this bottom edge so it sits flat on a desk. Again, you can kind of play with this. You can think about the particular application that you're using and make contour choices based on that. But this is a good kind of basic start. So now at this point what we want to do is we want to go ahead and flatten out the underside of this. And so the way that we're going to do this is by creating just a big old rectangle that's going to serve as a flat base. And so we can hit the R tool for rectangle. We can come into here, and I'm going to create a center point rectangle and just make it oversized for this. And then I'm going to extrude it up. And I don't want to cut this just yet. I want to make this a new body because I want to be able to kind of make some more informed, kind of precise choices as to just how much of this I want to cut. So again, I'm going to go back into my body, and I'm going to, this is going to be our mouse, and again, I'm going to make the mouse here. Again, I want to see kind of what's going on the inside, so I'm going to make it a little bit transparent. And I'm going to select here and hit M for move, and move this down a little bit. And really what I'm looking for is to make the base of the mouse pretty much on the same plane as this base here. And we can see that we're actually pretty in line with that right there. And so that's going to be a good position for it. And so now I can go to combine, and I can select this as my target body. This is my tool body, and I can click cut, and we don't need to keep the tools here, so we can unclick that if it's checked, and we can click OK. Okay, and at this point we can see that we have trimmed the bottom of the mouse, so it's nice and flat, and should sit on a desktop quite nicely. Okay, now at this point this is still a solid object, and so we do need to hollow it out. We can do that using the shell tool, and so I'm going to select both the mouse body and the base, and we're going to shell it. We're going to start kind of thick. We're going to say let's shell it to 2 millimeters. But again, as I'm doing that, I want to make sure that I'm looking around here and making sure nothing's going to run into that. And here I can actually see it does look like this little roller connector is going to intersect with that, so maybe 1.5 will make that a little less dramatic. And so if I click OK, yeah, it looks like it maybe just clearing it. Okay, so that's good. Okay, so now it's hollow on the inside, but it's not in two pieces. We need to do that. And so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to, again, kind of create a rectangle that we're going to use to slice this into two pieces, a top piece and a bottom piece. So again, we'll hit our rectangle tool. We can choose our bottom here. And I like to use these center rectangles just because it makes it easy to get it wrapped around. And again, this can be just about any size. We'll finish our sketch, and I'm going to extrude that up using the E tool. And I just need to extrude this 1 millimeter and make it a new body. So again, I'll click OK. Okay, and just like we did before, we're going to be moving this. So I'll click on this and click M. And I'm going to be, again, trying to find a good line where I want this to split. Now, one choice that I might make this around is kind of where I want the wire to come out of the front, and we want that to be relatively low, just based on where the circuitry is. And so I'm okay with splitting it right there. And at this point then, we can choose to split the body. Okay, we'll choose this as the body to split. The splitting tool is going to be the face of our rectangle here. And we do want to have that Extend Splitting Tools option selected. And so if I click OK, at this point it didn't look like it necessarily did anything, but I can now see that I've got a mouse and a mouse one. And if I hover over here, it shows the bottom. And so I can go ahead and change the name of this to mouse bottom. And I can change the name of this to mouse top. Okay, now at this point, I don't really need this anymore. And so if I go ahead and now I'm going to turn these on. I can see now that I've got my mouse bottom. That's what the bottom of the mouse is going to look like. Okay, and I can turn on the mouse top, and I've got the mouse top here. Okay, so let's go ahead and start working with our components here. I do want to have this the clip part, actually merge with the mouse bottom. And so ideally, I would like this clip and this mouse bottom to be the same. This little area right here is a window that needs to see through, and you'll notice it's kind of blocked by the mouse bottom at the moment. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to turn off the clip so that we're just looking at the bottom. I'm going to do right here, and I'm actually going to just make an oversized hole here that's going to merge with the clip. And so I'm going to come here, I'm going to go to rectangle, I'm going to sketch on this face, and again, kind of a center rectangle. And I'm just going to make something that is, again, oversized, but big enough to kind of fit that mouse window through. And so I'm going to hit E for extrude. I'm going to cut up through the center, and you can see it's just going to make this big, giant hole here. But if I turn the clip back on, it should be okay. It should mostly get filled in. As long as this window is completely unobstructed, then we'll be in good shape. Okay, now at this point then, we can combine these two together. Again, we'll use our Combine tool and our target body and our tool body. And instead of cut, we'll do a join. And if we join those, we should find that they turn into a single solid piece. And at this point, we can go to opacity control, change it to 100%, and that should be the bottom of our mouse, all ready to go. Okay, so that being said, we still have to kind of deal with the top of our mouse and kind of making sure that it interacts correctly with the scroll wheel and the buttons. So let's go ahead and get started with that. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to kind of carve out a appropriately sized hole for the scroll wheel in the top. To do that, we can use our Combine tool. This is our target body. Our tool body is the scroll wheel. We want to make this a cut, and we definitely want to keep the tools. We're going to be using this stuff a little bit later on, and so if we click OK, what we should see is if we turn off the functionals, we should see now that we've got a hole that is perfectly sized for the scroll wheel. However, since that scroll wheel does need to move, we need to open this up a little bit, so it's got a little bit of space on each side in order to be able to kind of not get caught on the edges. And so to do that, I'm going to zoom in here, and I'm going to select each of these faces, or rather, I'm going to choose this Press Pull tool, and then come through and select each of these faces, and there are 4 of them, so you may have to maneuver around to find them. Okay, but here you can see I've got the entire area selected. Okay, and I want to widen this out a little bit. And so if I bring this up here, I'm going to widen mine to, we'll say, 2 millimeters. That'll allow for any kind of small adjustments to be made. And you can always go back if this doesn't print correctly. You can always go back and fix this. But I'm going to err on the side of making a little bit wider and go to 2 millimeters. And click OK. And so now we'll turn our functionals back on. And we can see we've definitely got a lot of clearance. Well, you know, in retrospect, that's too much clearance. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to change that up. So we click press pull here, 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 and here. Okay, turn my functionals back on. And I'm going to go negative 1.5. Okay, I'm feeling better about that. So, yeah, I think that looks okay. Okay, great. Now, at this point then, we need to do a couple of things. We can start working on our buttons now. But you'll notice, like, right now, we don't have any separation. So if you kind of push on this, it's a solid piece. So it's not actually going to kind of move up or down. And so what I'd like to do is to kind of actually split the face of this in a couple areas to create a relief that allows you to kind of push down on just one side of the mouse in order to engage with these buttons below. So to do that, again, we'll kind of do a couple of small things. I'm going to create a new rectangle. And this time I'm going to create it along this face, kind of going up and down. And I'm just going to make it kind of arbitrarily sized. And I'm going to extrude it. And I need to think through kind of how much I want to extrude it. I'm going to start off with maybe 1.5 millimeters. We're going to create that as a new body. Okay. And now what I want to do is I want to position this to kind of just run right along this edge here. I'm going to turn the functionals off for now, but I'll click this and hit move. And I want to get a nice top-down view to center this up. Okay, and I'm going to move it down this way, because what I should be looking for is to kind of split this edge right here. So if I'm looking at it pretty straight on, it looks like I need to move it just this way, just a hair. Okay, negative 0.5. There we go. Okay, so I'm liking the way that that looks. Okay, so now what we can do is, again, we can combine. Here's our tool body, or sorry, our target body. Here's our tool body. We do want to cut, and we don't need to keep this tool, and so we can click OK. And at this point, then, you can see that we've kind of split it along this edge, and that'll allow some separation between the left button and the right button. Now what we need to do is we need to kind of create a relief along the sides so that, again, this button can kind of push down a little bit. So once again, we'll create a rectangle, and I'm going to create it along this face. Again, just draw it out to an arbitrary size, and we're going to extrude it out. In this case, I'm going to do this one 1 millimeter. We'll create that as a new body, and click OK, and we're going to move it. And we need to kind of decide how far in do we want to cut. And it doesn't need to be super far in, but we need to decide kind of how far up and how far back from the front. And so I'm kind of choosing mine to cut, right about here. You can look and see how that looks. Yeah, that seems to be okay. I think that'll give it enough flex. So again, we'll combine our target body, our tool body. We'll cut. We don't need to keep the tools. And so if we click OK, again, you can kind of see we've made these little relief cuts so that when you push down on this, there's enough kind of, flexion in here to engage with the buttons below. Okay. Now, at this point, we need to add some geometry to actually hit those buttons down below. And so we're going to turn the functionals back on, okay? Because we can see, kind of, if we look through the surface here, I'm going to decrease the opacity on this even more. We'll go to something like 50%. All right, we can see that, you know, you can push down all you want, but it's not actually going to hit this button too much. We need to kind of create some geometry there that will allow it to actually, like almost like a little finger coming down from the top of this, to actually push on the button. So to do that, I'm actually going to turn the mouse body off for now, and I'm going to extrude, and I want to extrude the tops of these up, and again, I'm just going to kind of pick an arbitrary number. We'll say 15 millimeters, and I want to create that as a new body, and click OK. And so at that point, I can turn off the functionals and turn the mouse top back on, and this allows me to kind of see whereabouts those little fingers need to come through. But obviously they're poking up through the body of the mouse, and that's not any good. And so what we're going to do is we're going to actually extrude these back down. So I'll hit E for extrude, and we're going to trim them down until they are inside the surface of the mouse. So they need to be below the top surface, but they also need to be above the bottom surface of the mouse here. And so if I click OK, oops, hold on. I did not want to cut. Let's try that again. So here, here. Okay, so we're going to lower them down again. Okay, that looks like it's there. We need to turn the mouse top off for this. We'll click OK. Now we can turn the mouse top back on. Okay, and it looks like, if I'm not mistaken, that one's still poking through just a little bit, and we don't want that. And so I'm going to, again, do the same operation, and just bring this down a millimeter, and we'll bring this one down a millimeter too, just to see if that is going to work out nice and evenly. Put the mouse top back on. Okay, I can see that that one's intersecting. Let's see, is that one intersecting? Let's look on the inside. Yep, looks like they're both touching. Oh, looks like they're both not touching. Okay, so we need to raise this one up just a bit more. Looks like it was a bad idea to bring that one down as well. Okay, let's try that again. Okay, looks like we're back in business. Okay, so now what we can do is we can go ahead and join these. And so again, we'll click Combine, we'll click our mouse top, our tool bodies are here, and we want to join them up. Okay, and now they are connected, so I can turn the opacity on this back to 100%, and I can see that I have my two little fingers there. I am going to kind of increase the size of these. To do that, we're going to use the Press Pull tool. Again, I'm going to select the outer edges of these and just widen them up a little bit. Let's go an additional 1.5 millimeters. Okay, so that's going to make them a little bit chunkier so that it's really hard for them to miss. And so now if I click on the functionals and I'm going to drop the opacity, again, what I should see is that when you push down on those, you can see those little fingers are going to engage those buttons right there. Okay, so that's looking pretty good there. Okay, now at this point, we're going to bring our mouse bottom back in, because what we'd like to do is we're going to kind of carve some geometry here that's going to allow the cord to pass through. And so to do that, we're going to kind of model that cord just a little bit. I'm going to use the circle tool on this plane. And again, I'm just going to kind of create a circle. And this time, I'm going to measure the cord on my mouse, and it looks like that's coming in around 3 millimeters. So that sounds good. So let's make 3 millimeters, and I'm going to extrude this out, again, to kind of an arbitrary length. Okay. Now at this point, then, I want to move that. So I'll choose this one, and click M, and I'm going to bring it forward. Okay, let's bring it across forward still. And I'm going to kind of put it in the spot where I ideally would really like my mouse cord to come through. Okay, so maybe down a little bit. Okay, bring it down just a bit more. Okay, so I like that right there. Okay, now at this point then, I'm going to have the mouse bottom, and we're going to cut that away to kind of make a nice little circular hole there, and click OK. And so now we can kind of see how the mouse cord's going to come right through there. Now again, we've got a little bit of problem. Now that we've got both of these together, we can see that when you click down on this, there's actually no room for this bottom finger to flex at all because it's going to hit the bottom of the mouse. But again, that's okay. We can turn off the bottom of the mouse. And what we can do is using the press pull tool again, we're going to select this face and this face, and we're actually going to cut up into it 1 millimeter. And so if we click OK, then we turn our mouse bottom back on. Now we can see that there's actually a little bit of space here for when you push down on this for it to actually click down. Okay, so we're getting pretty close here. The only thing left to think about is how do we actually go about attaching these two things together. There's lots of options that we can use. I'm going to use just some small clips as well as a screw. And so we will work on making those two work together, and we should be in good shape as soon as we're done with that. Okay, so we're going to come over here. The first thing we're going to start on is with a screw, and we're going to kind of run the screw kind of right through the base here, and then we'll use some clips to kind of keep everything nice and centered. So to do that, we're going to create a circle on this base plane, and that circle, we know that the screw that we're going to be using has a 3 millimeter diameter, so I'm just going to double that for kind of the post that's going to hold it together. And so we'll make that 6 millimeters, and again, I'm going to kind of extrude that up and make that of just an oversized length. We'll trim that up here in just a second, but something that's definitely going to run the full length. Okay, once again, I'm going to move the opacity of these. I want to be able to kind of see where I'm positioning this and where it's going. And so I'm going to come over here to the mouse here, and I'm going to move it here. I don't want it to kind of interfere with anything kind of going on this side, and so I'd really like it to kind of be hanging out here in the back. And it can be kind of, I guess, relatively close, but we just want to make sure that it doesn't get in the way of anything that's going on there. Okay. So that looks like it's in a kind of good solid spot, and so we can go ahead and click OK. I do want to make sure that it is kind of positioned well here. Okay, good. And I'm going to just drop its height down just a bit. I'm going to do that with the move tool. So I'll select that, and I'm going to move it down just a bit, just so it's below the surface here. Okay, that's looking good. Okay, and we can see it's actually kind of poking its way through there, and that's okay. We'll go ahead and take care of that in just a moment. I'm going to go ahead and turn the bottom of the mouse off, and I'm going to click extrude, and I'm going to bring this up about this much. We'll click OK, turn the mouse bottom back on. Okay, there, and we can see that it's not actually, touching that space anymore, and that's okay. That's exactly what we want. Okay, now at this point then, what we want to do is we're going to actually duplicate this and move it down, and because we're going to have a post that's kind of going through the top and a post that's going through the bottom. And so for this, we'll click here again, we'll click move, and we're going to move this down. Oops, actually, we're going to try that again. You can click this body, click move, but this time I need to create a copy because I actually want 2 of these. Okay, and this time I want to position it so that they are just touching each other, and that's good right there. Okay, so now we've got one that's getting on the bottom. We're going to trim this up in just a second, but we're liking the way that that's looking. Okay, so at this point then, I'm going to go ahead and trim this off. This one looks like it's in good position and ready to merge with the top one there. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off the mouse bottom, I'm going to turn off this one, and we're going to merge these two together. So I'm going to combine, this is our target body, and we're going to join those together so that those will be just one big solid piece of plastic now. Okay, but let's go ahead and turn on our mouse bottom and mouse top. Now I need to trim this one up, and so let's take a kind of a close look there. I'm going to hit extrude, and I'm going to start trimming this one up to the bottom. And if I click cut, okay, it should be flush with the bottom there. And now what I can do is I can go ahead and look at the overall size. And actually, I'm gonna trim this up just a little bit more because it turns out that the head of the mouse is 6 millimeters, which happens to be the diameter of this, and it's 2 millimeters deep. And so I'm going to go ahead and take that in 2 millimeters and actually cut into both the head of the where the screw is going to go into and the base of this mouse, so that the screw can recess into the base of the mouse. Okay, so now at this point then we can see that we are kind of through here, but we do have a small issue in so much that it doesn't look like they are actually touching anymore. Let's go ahead and take a small step back, and in this case then let's extrude that up, but let's just go up 1 millimeter, and maybe that'll be a little bit better. There we go. Okay, so they're still connected to each other. Alright, so let's join these up together, and so we're going to turn off the mouse top. Oops. There we go. Oh, don't need that guy. Did these not join together? Let's try that again. So, combine, mouse top. Why are those two separate pieces? There we go. Looks like there wasn't enough overlap there, so we were able to get that fixed up. Okay, so if I turn that off, and we bring this back. Okay, and now we want to combine this with the mouse bottom. And so if we do that, we can click our combine. And now we have a screw area for our mouse. Okay, this is looking good so far. Now we've got one more thing that we want to do here, is we want to create a hole for this, for the screw to actually feed through. So I'm going to turn the mouse top back on. We're going to create a circle, and this time we're going to create a circle along this face. And you'll notice that it's going to let us kind of go right to the center point. And we're going to make this hole be 2.5 millimeters in diameter. That'll leave enough material for the screw to really bite into it. And we're going to extrude that up a certain amount, and let's go ahead and take it in, we'll say 20 millimeters. Okay, and what that does is it cuts into both of those materials so that we can kind of screw them in together, and it'll hold it tightly in place. Okay, so far so good. We're going to go ahead and make our 100% again. Okay, and the last thing we're going to do is we're going to add just a couple of like maybe small brackets along these edges that are going to allow us to kind of clasp into the top part of the mouse just to keep things from sliding around. And so to do that, we're going to kind of follow this contour a little bit, and we're going to see if we can kind of bring this out and kind of create some geometry that's going to move up, that's going to allow us to hold it into place. So we're going to go ahead and do the a band going around the edge to kind of create a little clip that will allow this to kind of latch onto the top and prevent movement from going around. In order to do so, though, we actually have to undo something we did before, which was adding this little hole for the mouse. We'll come back and add this in, but it just complicates the process, and so we're going to take it out right now. The way that we're going to remove it is actually quite clever. Down here, you'll actually see that there is a whole series of functions that kind of shows everything that we've done. And here you can see that part where we extruded that base and did the combine of that hole. You can kind of tell because it's lighting up when I'm hovering over it. So I'm going to hover over that combine and actually click delete, and you'll see that it's going to kind of take that away and kind of put that rod back in there. And that's good. We'll bring that back in just a second. But what we're going to do in this particular case is we're going to sketch a line. So we'll hit the L tool, and we're going to select this face here. And we're going to come up to our offset tool, and we're going to select this interior line here, and we're going to offset it inside 2 millimeters. And at that point then, we can hit our extrude tool and select this interior face. And what we would like to do is to do a symmetric extrude, and we want to go in, let's see what 2 millimeters looks like in either direction. So it's going to kind of come down into there. Okay, and I don't see that it's going to actually cause any real issues, and so we'll do a join, and it's going to add this little lip around the edge that we'll be able to engage our print with fully. And so we'll click OK there. So far, so good. What we want to do, though, is we want to roll this edge a little bit. Let's turn our mouse top on and see if that's going to cause any significant issues. Oh, that looks okay so far. So we'll turn our mouse top off again. And what we want to do is we want to fillet this edge. So we can click this little fillet tool. We can click the edge here, and let's see if we can round that just a bit to make it really easy to engage with. So, okay, so I'm going to give it a 1 millimeter fillet along that edge, and you can see how it's going to roll that edge just a little bit, and that'll make sure that it slips on nice and easy. We're also going to fillet this other edge as well. Make sure up there. Yeah, so this hard edge as well. And if we fillet that, oh, looks like it's grumpy about that size. Let's try 0.25. Let's try 0.75. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to fillet it at 0.75. And it's going to create this nice little round edge going all around that we'll be able to kind of fit that into. Okay. Now, at this point then, we want to go ahead and we want to finish this cut that we've done here. But we need to modify it a little bit because it's going to need to cut through this new edge that we've added here as well. And so let's go ahead and we're going to change the position of this. So let's see, that's our this up a little bit. Let's assume we can't. Oh, okay. Let's go ahead and cancel that out. Alright, let's go see where we made this, and we can just remove it from our timeline altogether. Let's see. So, bring this around here. Again, we're just kind of searching through here. Aha, okay, so there's the extrude. Okay, so let's go ahead and delete that. Good, okay, so now we have it. Good deal. All right, so now we should be able to come and select this and now we can go reposition it, just like we did before. So, good little editing trick anytime you make a mistake. That's one of the really clever things about the software, is that it lets you go back and fix mistakes that you make. Okay, so looking at that, let's make sure it's actually cutting through that we want. Make sure it's actually cutting all the way through. Even if it's just a little bit, that's okay. Okay, we put the top back on. Yeah, I think that should be cutting through enough. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to bring this mouse tap back on, and we will do our combine. Our target body is going to be the mouse bottom. Our tool body is going to be here. We do want to keep the tool this time because we are going to kind of use it to carve up that piece just a bit. But if we turn off this, oh, we still see it there. Why do we see it there? Because we didn't cut. Let's try that again. Okay. Combine with mouse bottom. This. We want it to cut, and we do want to keep the tool. And we click OK. Good, okay. So now we can see that it actually cut through that edge there. Very nice. All right, one more time. We are going to bring it back. We're going to combine. We're going to do it with the mouse top this time. And here, we're going to cut through. We don't need to keep the tool anymore because we're done with it. And here, we can see that it cuts all the way through there. Okay, so that should allow the cord of the mouse to pass through and hopefully not get caught on the buttons as they are clicking. We'll see. Okay, so you may notice that I've got my geometry a little bit higher on this side, and that's because that's where the hand's going to kind of naturally rest. This is a right-handed mouse, and so it's going to kind of naturally fall along this edge with the big pointer finger here and the smaller fingers along this side. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and save if you've not saved several times already, which you should have. And we're going to go ahead and break this into pieces that can be 3D printed. So we're going to turn off our functionals here, and we're going to come over to Tools. We're going to go to Make. We'll select this top body. We don't want to send to a 3D print utility, so if that's checked, go ahead and uncheck that. And we're going to call this mouse top. Okay, and that saves out. Okay, and then at this point, I can click it again. I'm going to select mouse bottom, and I will save it as mouse bottom. And that is our completed mouse. So at this point then, we would 3D print it, assemble it, sand it, and see how it works. And that's it.